January 1st, 2020. This was the start of a new decade, full of hope and excitement, but no one could have predicted this. The question football fans are now asking is, how will football change? And will it ever be the same again? That's what I'm here to find out. The coronavirus has had a devastating impact on football. It all started when handshakes were banned and clubs were forced to play behind closed doors. Some of the biggest names in the sport came down with the virus, including Arsenal manager Mikel Arteta. Leagues have been postponed and some cancelled. The National League came to this decision fairly early on. I spoke to Steve Thompson, who is the managing director of National League Football Club Dagenham and Redbridge, on if he was surprised the season was cancelled.
A National League board member, so I've been involved with it right from the start. I wasn't surprised because I was in amongst it right from the beginning. I'm just a bit. If I was surprised it took so long.
The National League hasn't just been impacted in terms of results. It's also meant cancellations of events, which also bring money into the football club.
We had a funeral reception booked in, 3 different organisations running quiz nights, a 40th birthday party, and a country and western evening. All of them are cancelled.
It's not just the lower leagues in England that will be affected if the season is cancelled. Girona FC, which is a football club in Spain's La Liga 2, which is co-owned by Pep Guardiola, spoke to me about the impact on a club the size of Girona and how important it is to receive the TV revenue.
Basically, for a small club like Girona, sometimes even the impact is even huge or higher than in other clubs. You receive that type of incomes that for a small club like Girona is quite everything, rather than have ticketing or merchandising or sponsoring. These small clubs, basically 80-85% of the budget is related to the TV rights.
TV rights have increased massively since the Premier League began, to the point now that they are worth over 5.1 billion. Smaller clubs rely more on TV rights than gate incomes. Bournemouth's income very much depends on the TV right. 88% of Bournemouth's income is based on TV revenue. The TV rights are a huge source of income for the football clubs. It's demonstrated through this table, which shows how much TV revenue each league gets.
Clubs are very interested in pushing because there are millions of pounds in game. Millions. And we're talking about probably a third of the season in TV rights. That's £2 billion to be distributed among football clubs. That's a lot of money. So for most of the clubs, if the season don't start again and they are not able to finish the season, the financial impact is going to be massive.
France, Belgium and the Netherlands have already made the decision to cancel their season, and this is going to have a major impact on clubs such as Lyon, who want to play in the Champions League.
You haven't finished the league.
Yeah.
And Lyon is not going to play Champions League because someone decides that he's not going to play Champions League. I think Lyon is trying to sue the league or trying to sue someone because, of course, why they cannot play Champions League. I would say there's not a real option for everyone, you know. Everything is good, everything is bad in the way you see it.
It's 40, between around 40 million euros for next season that they're not going to get. So it's just about the money.
The coronavirus had a massive impact on football revenue due to matchday income and TV rights being affected. Francisco highlighted the massive challenges football faces in the future.
Clubs will have less money than they were expecting to have. And on the other hand, they have the same cost that they had before. It means they have to pay the players, which is basically the main expense in the football club. They have to pay the players the full salary, while the revenues, which is mainly TV rights and match day, have been decreased by 30%, 40%, some cases. So this is the difficulty. So clubs in leagues that haven't been able to renegotiate decreasing the salaries for the players will be exposed to a massive short of cash.
Yeah.
And if they don't have a strong balance sheet, they're going to have to be in debt, or they're going to have to, probably some of them will run out of operations.
Due to the financial repercussions clubs could face, they've been trying very hard to find alternatives
that they are not going to receive. And then, of course, the clubs that tried to negotiate with players, cut salaries, at least 15%, 10%, 5%, depends of the scenarios that it will be in the finishing the leagues.
Nearly every National League club has placed their staff on furlough, and Steve believes this has meant clubs have stayed afloat.
To be fair to the government, the furlough money and the speedy way that they've dealt with it has kept clubs afloat. But you can't see how that can carry on indefinitely. And there will be a crunch time.
You can understand smaller clubs using the furlough scheme, but huge clubs such as Liverpool and Tottenham Hotspur, to name a few, also used the scheme but faced massive backlash when it was released to the public.
Liverpool tried to do, and then they changed their mind and they come back because of the criticism. And maybe Tottenham because they spend a lot of money in the stadium and they are a little bit over depth, and then they really need to do something.
Football faces a lot of obstacles in its bid to return to England. Steve had an interesting set of views when I asked him how football returns in the current pandemic.
This is just my own personal view. I don't think you can play below the Premiership behind closed doors for any length of time. Perhaps, possibly in the Championship, but certainly not below that. I mean, I read in the paper today that the Football League, well, certainly Leagues 1 and 2, might be planning a vote on Monday or Tuesday about cancelling their season.
Steve was right about this. Clubs in League 2 voted unanimously to end the season. League 1 clubs couldn't come to an agreement, but it is clear that lower league clubs are doing everything they can to minimise the damage the virus has caused. With all the things that need to be sorted out, Steve doesn't think it's set in stone that football in England will return.
I don't think anybody could definitely say at the moment that the league will start. And for them to start on the 12th, they've got to have some real form of players coming back into training pretty quickly. I read somewhere that the Premier League were working on a basis of 350 to 400 people per game.
Yeah, I read that as well.
Now, they've all got to be tested. I would imagine that the players have got to be regularly tested whilst in training as well. But it's a logistical nightmare.
Steve is right to be concerned due to the risk involved. Recently, Premier League clubs have started to return to training in small groups, but certain players have refused to return, arguing it's not worth the risks. The first round of tests brought just 6 positive coronavirus tests out of 800 staff members. However, there is a long way to go before football in England can return safely.
What do you think the reaction would be if football players are tested before frontline workers?
There was one chief executive said that they would only agree to it if these tests were over and above what the front line were doing.
Yeah.
But there's also the question of turnaround of these tests. So I don't know. But I certainly don't think it can be done below the Premiership.
The season is going to finish a lot later than planned, and Perry thinks this will create a lot of issues for planning next season.
We finish this league later, and then they have to have holidays and then pre-season. That means that the new league, we need to start late September or beginning October. That means that these 10, 11 games that we need to squeeze in the calendar has to be squeezed before May, because in May has to finish the season because we are the Euro champs. You know, everything is not an easy one.
The way the world is today, the most important thing is the safety of players and staff. I asked Francisco if it was right that football is planning on returning with the state the world is currently in.
I think it's right. I think people need to think about something different, and people need to be entertained, and we are all sad about what is happening, but we need to turn the page and look to the future.
Steve offered a different opinion, saying that in terms of the National League, it's vital for the Premier League to return.
There are hundreds of millions that goes into the Football League. The Premier League funds most of the academy system throughout the Football League and the Premier League. There's money that goes into the Football Foundation that helps support grassroots football. And all the community trusts from the Premier League through the Football League to the National League are all helped and funded in one way or another through money from the Premier League. For that reason, and that's a purely selfish reason, I hope that the Premier League do manage to finish their games.
There is a lot of money in football through sponsorships, TV rights and matchday incomes. This will be affected in the next year. This will impact the transfers, wages of players, which is a huge part of the football business.
The value of these players, well, I think will decrease just because the clubs won't be spending as crazy as they have been spending in the recent years, because most of the clubs won't have the cash to do it. As I was mentioning, there are many football clubs in the Premier League, which is the main buying market in football players in the world, that will be struggling with cash. So they will not afford to buy expensive players over the next season. And this will have an impact in price and in salaries for new players as well. And this goes all the way down to through the pyramid of football. Premier League buys a lot of football players from France. Yeah. So French football clubs will not be able to sell at the prices they were expecting to sell. Then they will not be able to buy from other countries at the same prices that they will buy. This will decrease the size of the football business. But keep in mind that the football players business is a 5.4 billion euro business every year. I mean, this is not all fresh cash. This includes transfer from one club to the other club buys and use this money to buy another player. But this is the amount of, if you add all the transfers in the world, this is the value of the player transfer market.
I don't think that big transfer will happen, but good transfer are going to happen. This is what I think. Basically, because also is to take an opportunity in this market that some clubs, they have fresh cash or they can really face, they can do a very smart movements in the transfer window.
Perry also highlighted the issues that smaller clubs may face in the transfer window.
Of course, the Tier 2 clubs or Tier 3 clubs, they're going to struggle the situation because the billing that they have. And I think these clubs, they're going to be struggling to pay these things because they are not going to have that type of money that they used to have.
There is no doubt that football is going to change significantly in the next 1 or 2 years. I asked Perry where he sees football in the next 12 months.
Football gonna be played. The problem on TV, we want to see good football and we want to see good way of watching football on TV from home. The problem is going to be that maybe stadiums are going to be behind closed doors for a while, maybe for these 12 months.
This is going to have an impact on smaller clubs. However, the big clubs are also going to be hugely affected due to the massive incomes they get from a match day, including my club Arsenal.
Arsenal is one of the clubs that is going to be most affected by this virus in the next season. Arsenal has roughly £100 million coming from matchday, which is significant. It's the second biggest club with matchday revenues after United.
Yes.
And that is going to be roughly 40% of their budget. So if they cannot have fans attending the games, they're going to struggle financially significantly, together with United, Liverpool, Tottenham.
I put the question to Francisco on the impact this will have on smaller clubs financially.
Small clubs are less exposed, probably, because TV rights, money is going to come. It's going to keep coming in the future, but the revenue from match day is very small. Even in the Premier League, I mean, you look at clubs like, Bournemouth or Wolves. I mean, the amount of money that they get from match day is insignificant. It's nothing. It's around 5 million.
Yeah.
5 million in a budget of 120 doesn't matter. But clubs like Arsenal, as I was saying, is almost 25% of their budget. That's a hit because it's not that easy to replace this sort of money with a sponsorship or with other sources of revenues. But half of the clubs have less than 10% dependence on match day.
By not having fans in stadiums, Football is going to be very different moving forward. Pere thinks this is going to have a massive impact on the way we feel football.
This is really impacting the way we feel football and the way we feel sports. This is that's going to make a lot of difference, I think. But in somehow, it's going to be played.
All parts of football are going to be affected, but bigger clubs can afford to play behind closed doors for a while due to the larger incomes they receive. However, when I put this question of playing National League football behind closed doors, Steve shut it down straight away.
National League clubs couldn't afford to play behind closed doors.
Wow.
Not just the gate income, all the other things that go around with it.
Crazy.
And you couldn't show that many games on TV. There's not enough money involved for people to watch it on an iPad. It really, really depends on when we can restart. We can get a date and we're told that we can start playing with supporters in September, October. We might have half a chance. But if it's rolled over longer than that, I can see clubs going under.
Football is a huge business, but it's not indestructible. I put forward the question to Francisco on if football will survive in the long term.
There is a lot of interest in football everywhere. I mean, currently there are, at least that I know, 3 or 4 Premier League clubs in acquisition process. So there are new investors coming into the leagues. France is crazy. There is a lot of people trying to buy clubs in France. Football is growing, and it's an industry that has been growing for the last 20 years, like crazy. So football will keep going and will survive the crisis and will become probably stronger in the sense of a more sustainable business model. But it still attracts a lot of interest from investors everywhere in the world.
The reality is football is going to be very different moving forward. The virus has changed everything. No one right now has all the answers. However, despite the uncertainty in the world at the moment and the uncertainty around football, there is hope. And as a massive football fan myself, I cannot wait for the game to return and to watch my team once again. And I'm sure football fans watching feel the same.